Hey guys, welcome to another video that came from a question somebody asked that commented on one of my other YouTube videos. So as happens with YouTube, and this has been fun making these videos because I get comments from people and sometimes they come up with great ideas about other videos I should make, which is what happened here. I had a person comment on the video I think I made about builder fees and how that works with Cost Plus. They have a piece of property with an old house that they want to knock down. They already have another set of floor plans. And they were just asking, how do we get a few quotes? How do we compare builders when it comes to pricing? And I said, well, that's actually a very tricky thing to do because there are so many variables when you are looking at a build job. Obviously, if you were looking at two finished homes, let's go into a tract builder neighborhood and one home across the street from the other, and you can kind of look and see what they have in them, what lot they're sitting on, what they're asking for, and probably gauge what you think is the better deal. When you start talking to custom builders about building a custom home, it gets a lot trickier because you may be dealing with a lot of the phrase apples to oranges. In other words, things may not be exactly the same. And so that makes comparing quotes very challenging. I'm going to start with if you are talking to fixed price builders. These would be the builders that say, okay, I can build your plans with these specs for this amount of money, and it's guaranteed. I can do it for your home for $750,000. You're comparing against two builders. One says he can do it for $735,000 and the other one's $750,000. Well, the one's more expensive. But when you are in that situation, you need to drill down very hard on what is being quoted. This is an easy type of contract to understand because you've just got one number and you can look at the two and go, okay, they're quoting the same plan, and one is 15 grand more than the other. But what have they included in that? And when I say included, one of the tricky parts of dealing with the fixed price builders is you don't know what they're paying for anything. You don't really know. A lot of times you're seeing things like level 3 tile, level 2 countertops. You may not know what that is. Is one builder's level 2, the other builder's level 3? And so that's the challenging part about dealing with that type of contract is you really need to sort through all of their finish out levels and what those are. You may not, and you won't be able to find out what the cost of those items are, but you need to verify the materials are comparable. And this goes to a lot of things, big ticket items like HVAC systems, windows. You want to know what each builder is putting in the house for that money. Because one could be putting in the cheapest HVAC system and the other one is putting in a more expensive HVAC system. Maybe that's why builder B over here is more expensive. And so you have to weigh those options, try to make them as, apples to apples as you can. Okay, now that the fixed price builders are out of the way, let's go to what my company is, which is a cost plus builder, an open book cost plus builder. If you are talking to two cost plus builders, meaning with a cost plus, you are going to pay the builder's true cost for for labor and materials. And then the builders are going to charge you a fee based on the total cost for overhead and profit. I always say for easy numbers. In other words, if a house were $100,000 and the builder had a 10% builder fee, then the builder is being paid $10,000. Nothing these days costs $100,000, so that's just a simple example. But that's how it works. With a cost plus builder or two builders you're comparing, they're going to take your plans, talk to you about what's going in it as far as what you want for flooring, countertops and all this, cabinet types, HVAC, and then they are going to create an estimate because that's how we work in the cost plus world. We want to create an estimate that, hey, Mr. Jones, we think your home is going to cost, $750,000 to build plus the builder fee of X, and we end up here. When I talk about apples to oranges, this is where comparing two cost plus builders gets challenging. The one thing you can look at between the two builders and just know straight away if one is more expensive than the other is just what they charge on their builder fee, because this is disclosed. So unlike a cost plus builder, you have no idea what they're making. They could be making $10 or they could be making $100,000. You don't know, right? Same way we don't know what the car dealers make when they sell cars, things like that. With Cost Plus, you do, and that's what's cool about it. It is very transparent. and you see what the builder is charging. You may be looking at one builder, and that builder's charging you 15% builder fee. That's 15% of the cost of the project. The other builder may be charging 20%. So right there, you can say, okay, these two builders are charging me different amounts. One is less expensive from the standpoint of they are charging less. Let's say, though, they are at about the same, or they are the same. Hey, they're both charging 15%. So now we know when it comes to what they are charging us for the builder fee, those numbers are the same. So now we're looking at the other numbers. And where this gets so challenging is I can guarantee you they will not be apples to apples. You may look, and this builder may have $75,000 in for the flooring budget. This builder may have $55,000. Same with countertops, same with budgets for HVAC systems, windows. Quick story, anecdotal, years and years ago, we are now solely open book cost plus contracts. But over the years, I'd done fixed price, then I do cost plus, that kind of thing. I remember having a cost plus job, and it's probably been 8 years ago. And I did a budget for them. They were also talking to another builder. And they came back after I sent my budget to them, and they said, well, the other builder is this much less. We're going to go with that builder. And I was a little bit like, well, can I see the other builder's info before you just make a decision? And they said, yeah, we'll send it to you. And so when I got it, I start looking at it, and I'm going down the list, and I thought and said to them, well, this builder isn't less expensive than me. If we're looking at what they're charging, they're in the same kind of ballpark. But what this builder's done has put an estimate together with budgets in for some of these things that I don't think are very realistic. As somebody that builds custom homes, I joke that I'm part builder, part armchair psychologist, because I understand you don't want to, with an estimate, plan for the best. You want to plan for the worst and hope for the best. And worst isn't the right term, but you don't want to skimp on the estimate, because what happens, back to the psychological thing, is people start building, they are emotionally involved in the process, and they start making justifications to get more expensive materials than they said they were going to do. And there's nothing wrong with this. I mean, I've had numerous people go, you know what, we're going to spend the extra 20 grand on the countertops because we might as well do it now. It would just cost more to do it later. And they're not wrong about that. I mean, everything is less expensive to do during the new construction phase than it is to come back and do later. The only issue with that is you're just spending more money than you intended. 20 grand here, 10 grand there, 5 grand there. Kind of like your credit card bill, those little numbers add up to that big number at the bottom. When you're building a home, these somewhat small change orders or upgrades can add up fast. So, long story short, I'm telling these folks, I don't think this builder's budget is very realistic, and so they are not less expensive than I am. They have much lower budgets for everything than I do. I'm basing my estimate off what I think is reality, because what I don't want to do is what they've done, kind of shoot for the lowest number and then knowing it's not going to go like that when we build. Well, guess what? I didn't get the job. Funny thing was, and this has been a long time ago and I don't remember all the details, but somehow I got back in touch with them. I don't remember if I reached out to just check and see how things were going with their build, or if they reached out to me, whatever the case was. I've slept a few times since then. But the bottom line was, we had this little conversation in email, and they said, we wish we would have gone with you, because in the end, they ended up being around where you were, I think more. And I understand this dilemma too. There's a whole psychological thing on one hand that comes into play with expectations. Hey, you expect the price to be here and it ends up being here, as well as the real world. Hey, you've set up your banking, your financing, all of this, and now you're way over what that builder estimated the house was going to cost. So it didn't do anything for me. I didn't get the job, but it was kind of nice to hear that. And I kind of tucked that away into the memory hole of anecdotes of things that have had happen over the years. And it was kind of somebody saying they went with somebody because they thought they were less expensive, only to find out they weren't. Because when you are talking to cost plus builders, an estimate is an estimate. Now, as a builder that deals with this every day, I want the estimate to be as accurate as it can be. I would rather be, and I tell people this all the time, a little heavy on the estimates. I would rather have it be a little high because best case, we come in under the estimate. I'll usually put 10% contingency addendums in there, not addendums, but line items, budgets, and just say this is a safety margin. You know, you're only paying for what the job actually cost, but from a budgeting standpoint, again, not intellectually, psychologically, and what you've set up with your bank, it is better to plan for the worst and hope for the best. I'm digressing a bit here, but when you are talking to two builders, that's what you need to be looking at. Okay, first, how are they charging for their builder fee? And assuming those numbers are close to each other, you know what you're paying them, then what have they done with each budgets? And let's just say we've got builder A and builder B. What I suggest you do is you take both of their budgets and you go through and you compare the two. You may not be able to go back to builder A and say, hey, change all these numbers for me. Just change them yourself. Builder A had 50 grand in for flooring. This one had 75. Start making those equal to try to sort out, which builder you think you would rather work with. And it may come down to that builder fee, or it may come down to how comfortable you are and how much you trust that builder, which honestly I think is more important than cost. Plenty of people have tried to use the less expensive contractor and regretted it. I have a saying, every time I've tried to save a buck, I spend two. So I don't try to save a buck anymore. And I don't mean that I don't try to get good deals on things, but there is something to be said for using a professional contractor who does things right, and maybe they run a little more than another one. But sometimes with all the problems and comebacks and things you have to deal with on the lesser quality work, you've spent more than you would have with the good contractor anyways. And that can apply to builders. So you want to be comfortable with the builder, have a trust component with them, make sure you get along with them, and don't use the estimates from each builder as the end all be all on your decision. That's my thoughts on how you compare builders. You really want to try to make things as apples to apples on either the fixed price contracts and what they're putting in the home, or if it's a cost plus builder, the estimates, and that they line up. Again, one builder may not be less expensive than the other. They may just have lower estimate numbers, budgets in for the various items. One last thing, when you are talking to local custom builders, because most true custom builders are not these big national companies. They are local companies, often family owned, those kinds of setups. Generally speaking, I don't think one builder gets a significant difference in cost than another builder. What I mean by that is I'm over here getting my lumber for X. Is some other builder out there that is a competitor of mine paying way less for lumber? Doubtful. And so I don't think between two custom builders, one builder is really a lot lower on cost than the other if everything were apples to apples. If builder A and builder B are using the exact same tile, using the exact same lumber, exact same insulation, generally speaking, they are paying close to the same cost. Usually custom builders aren't high volume. It's the big volume builders that get discounts, substantial discounts on materials. If you are D.R. Horton building 50,000 homes a year, of course you get materials for less. But that's a completely different type of builder that works on a volume type of business model. When you are dealing with the custom builders that may do 3 homes a year, they may do 10, heck, they may do 15 or 20. The one doing 20 may get a little better pricing on materials than the one doing 3, but it's probably not significant. So keep that in mind when you're looking at these builders also. I would suggest going with the one you are the most comfortable with, because this is like a marriage. And in the end, maybe even paying a little more for one over another can be worth it to you. So appreciate the person that suggested I make this video. I know I rambled on for a while, as I tend to do sometimes with these, but I hope it's helpful to you guys out there, and I'll see you on the next one.